Earth was just another tiny speck in the vastness of space. To the galaxy, it was nothing special, a backwater planet that held no real importance. The beings that lived on Earth were seen as primitive, unaware of the wonders and dangers beyond. Their atmosphere, they were considered insignificant by the galactic powers that controlled the stars. Earth for centuries had been left to its own devices, forgotten by the galaxy that had moved on without a second thought. Life on Earth continued as it always had. People woke up each day, went to work, and lived their lives. There was no sign that anything extraordinary was about to happen. The sky was the same, the stars unchanged, and the planet's future seemed set. But things were beginning to change, even if no one on Earth could see it yet. Somewhere deep in the mountains, hidden beneath layers of stone and earth, an ancient power was stirring. It was a power so old that no one remembered it existed. Long ago, a race of beings had placed this technology on Earth, thinking it would remain dormant forever. They had hoped it would never be discovered, hidden away in the depths of the planet. Yet, as centuries passed, the technology began to awaken. Slowly, its mechanisms clicked into life. At first, it was just a faint signal, a soft hum, barely noticeable to anyone. But it wasn't just any signal. It was a call that resonated through the cosmos, a message meant to be heard by the advanced civilizations across the galaxy. And slowly, it did. Across light years of space, it was picked up by a network of galactic explorers. The first to notice the signal was a race of beings called the Valkyrians, known throughout the galaxy for their technological prowess. They had long been watching the stars, keeping track of the planets that might hold secrets. At first, they thought the signal was nothing more than a glitch, something to ignore, but after analyzing it, they came to a startling realization. The signal was real, and it was coming from a planet they had long dismissed. Earth. The Valkyrians shared the discovery with other galactic empires. Some scoffed at it, dismissing it as an irrelevant curiosity. But others, more cautious and wise, felt a ripple of unease. Could this signal be a warning? Could Earth be more than it appeared? The galaxy, after all, had been at peace for centuries. It was a time of stability, with each empire holding their place, knowing their boundaries. But in the depths of space, the Valkyrians' message traveled far and wide, awakening the interests of beings who had never even heard of Earth. Meanwhile, life on Earth went on, unaware of the stirrings in the stars. No one suspected that the planet they called home was about to become the center of attention for the most powerful civilizations in the universe. Back on Earth, a small group of scientists stumbled upon the same strange signal, though they did not fully understand its meaning. At first, they thought it was just a transmission from a satellite, perhaps even a mistake. But as the days passed, they noticed a pattern. It was not random, it was calculated, purposeful. This wasn't just noise. This was a message. One scientist, Dr. Elias Ford, became obsessed with it. He spent every waking moment trying to decode the signal. His colleagues were skeptical. It's nothing, just static, they told him. But Dr. Ford knew something important was happening. He could feel it in his bones. Soon the signal grew stronger, and it wasn't just coming from one source. More signals, similar but different, began to emerge from other points in the sky. Each one seemed to be calling to something, but what and why now? Dr. Ford's discovery quickly gained attention, though not everyone was happy about it. Governments, secret organizations, and military leaders all took an interest. But the truth was, no one knew what the signals meant. No one could explain them. As the signals continued, a quiet realization began to grow across the planet. Earth was no longer as alone as it had once thought. Something bigger was out there, and it was starting to take notice. In distant corners of the galaxy, leaders of empires who had long since forgotten about Earth began to rethink their assumptions. The planet that had once been dismissed was now at the forefront of their minds. They began to send their ships toward Earth, curious, cautious, and perhaps a little afraid. Yet Earth was still oblivious to the attention it was receiving. Planet's population continued with their daily lives. The idea that they might be the center of a galactic storm was far from their minds, but it would not remain that way for long. The quiet beginnings of Earth's awakening were about to unfold, and the galaxy would never be the same. The signal continued to grow, a hum that echoed through the void of space. To the untrained ear, it would have seemed like nothing more than a faint noise. But to those who knew how to listen, it was more than just a sound. It was a cry for attention. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had once overlooked Earth began to notice it. The first to respond were the Valkyrians, a race of explorers and scientists known for their fascination with the unknown. They had observed the signal for weeks, and now they were certain of one thing: Earth was not as insignificant as they once thought. Far from being a backwater planet, Earth harbored something that intrigued them. They could not yet put their finger on it, but they knew they had to investigate. A small, sleek vessel was dispatched from the Varkarian homeworld, tasked with reaching Earth and discovering the source of the signal. It was a simple mission, they thought, just a reconnaissance. But as their ship entered the outer reaches of Earth's atmosphere, something unexpected happened. At first, there was nothing. No sign of life, no strange forces. But then, the ship's sensors began to pick up strange readings and explained energy surges emanating from the planet's surface. The crew aboard the Varkarian ship exchanged confused glances. It was as if something ancient was awakening beneath Earth's surface. They had expected the signal to be some sort of primitive signal, a message from a species long forgotten. What they didn't expect was the power that seemed to be hidden deep within the planet. The Varkarians, accustomed to advanced technology, could sense the potential. There was something far beyond what Earth's primitive societies should be capable of. They couldn't understand it, but they knew it was there. And that knowledge triggered a series of events that would change everything. Back on Earth, Dr. Elias Ford continued to study the signal. What had started as an academic curiosity was now a full-fledged obsession. Every day he pored over the data, trying to decipher the pattern, trying to understand what it all meant. His colleagues, initially skeptical, began to share his excitement. The signal was no longer something random. It was something purposeful, something important. The scientists had begun to theorize that this wasn't just a signal from space. It was a call to Earth from something or someone beyond the stars. But they had no idea who or what could be sending it. Was it a race of beings far more advanced than humans? Or was it something even stranger? The possibilities were endless, and that was what made it so thrilling. As the signal grew stronger, so did Dr. Ford's sense of urgency. He knew that time was running out. The world was beginning to notice his work. Governments had caught wind of the discovery, and soon military organizations were becoming involved. Dr. Ford's initial excitement began to wane, replaced with a growing sense of unease. What if this was not a peaceful message? What if Earth was being targeted by forces far more powerful than anyone could comprehend? He continued his research, desperate to find any clue that might shed light on the mysterious signal. But as the days turned into weeks, the signal only grew stronger, more insistent. And then, something incredible happened. One evening, as Dr. Ford sat at his desk, analyzing the latest readings, the signal changed. It wasn't just a hum anymore. It was now a voice, faint and distant, but unmistakable. The message was clear, though its meaning was not. "Prepare, we are coming." Dr. Ford's heart raced. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. The message was unmistakable, but what did it mean? He immediately alerted the other scientists, and soon, the world's leaders were informed. Earth was no longer just receiving a signal, it was being warned. The world was thrown into chaos. News outlets buzzed with speculation. Governments held emergency meetings, trying to figure out what this all meant. Was Earth under threat? Was this the beginning of an invasion? Or was it something else entirely? As the days passed, more and more evidence came to light. The Varkarians were not the only ones watching Earth. Other civilizations, more powerful and ancient, had also picked up on the signal. A galactic council, made up of the most advanced species in the galaxy, began to discuss what to do with Earth. Some were fearful, seeing the planet as a potential threat. Others were curious, eager to investigate the source of such an unusual signal. The Vuk, who had initially dismissed Earth as nothing more than a curiosity, were now seeing it in a new light. Their scouts had reported back with the data they had collected, and the galaxy's most powerful minds were beginning to piece together what Earth might truly be capable of. The ancient technology hidden within the planet was more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen, and now, it was beginning to awaken. The galaxy's leaders had always believed that their technology was the pinnacle of advancement. They had seen countless worlds rise and fall, each one contributing to the galaxy's understanding of life and civilization. But Earth's signal was different. It wasn't a plea for help. It was a statement of intent. And as the days passed, the galaxy began to realize that they had made a grave mistake by ignoring Earth for so long. Earth was not just a backwater planet, it was a sleeping giant, and the galaxy was about to awaken it. In the coming weeks, the Varkarians and other alien species prepared for what they believed would be the most important event in the history of the galaxy. They knew that whatever was happening on Earth would change everything. The question was, would it be a blessing or a curse? As Earth's signal continued to grow stronger, one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. As the days turned into weeks, Earth's situation became more complicated. The signal that had once seemed like an oddity was now a source of intense global focus. Dr. Elias Ford, once the sole researcher, was now leading a global team of scientists, military experts, and government officials, all trying to make sense of the mysterious transmissions. The message had been clear: prepare, we are coming. But what exactly were they preparing for? What did this ominous warning truly mean? Governments scrambled to take control of the situation. Military forces were placed on high alert. Satellites and space stations were recalibrated to scan the skies for any signs of an incoming threat. The world was on edge. The calm, quiet existence Earth had once known was rapidly slipping away. People began to wonder, was this the beginning of an invasion, or perhaps a message from a distant civilization seeking contact? Meanwhile, Dr. Ford's obsession with the signal deepened. He couldn't shake the feeling that something big was happening just beyond their reach. He stayed up late into the night, poring over the data. The patterns in the signal had changed once again. What was once a simple, repetitive hum had become a rhythmic pulse, like the beating of a heart, and then it shifted again. This time, the signal seemed to be almost alive. It moved in unpredictable ways, as if responding to something. One night, as Dr. Ford sat at his desk, exhausted from days of work, he felt a sudden chill run down his spine. The signal was louder, more intense, and for the first time, he could hear a voice, faint but undeniable. The words echoed through the room like a whisper, though the source was beyond comprehension. You are not ready, but you will be. Dr. Ford stared at the screen, unable to believe what he was hearing. The voice was distant, yet it felt close, as though it was coming from deep within the Earth itself. Could this be some form of extraterrestrial intelligence, or was there something on Earth that they were simply not seeing? His heart pounded in his chest as he realized one truth: whatever was happening, Earth was at the center of it. The world's leaders, having been briefed on Dr. Ford's findings, were beginning to take the threat more seriously. International summits were held, and the world's most powerful nations came together in an attempt to understand the implications. But despite their best efforts, no one had any clear answers. The signal was not a simple message. It was a warning, a promise, and no one knew exactly what it meant. Unbeknownst to Earth, other civilizations had already taken notice. The Valkyrians, the first to detect the signal, had sent a fleet to investigate. They were cautious but curious, aware that whatever lay beneath the surface of Earth could alter the balance of power across the galaxy. Their ships silently approached, hidden in the shadows of space. Watching from a distance, they were not the only ones. Soon, several other galactic empires sent their own scout ships, drawn to the planet by the growing signal. Earth was now the center of a quiet but intense galactic gathering. On the surface, Earth's governments continued to prepare. The military, once seen as an overreaction, now appeared to be the planet's first line of defense. Cities were fortified, air defenses were upgraded, and space agencies launched a series of missions to establish a permanent presence in orbit. The message was clear: Earth was no longer just another planet, it was something much more. As the weeks passed, the signal intensified. A new message, different from the others, emerged from the depths of space. This time, the transmission was stronger, more coherent. You have been found, the time has come. Dr. Ford sat frozen in his chair. This message wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. Earth had been found by who, or what, he still couldn't understand, but it was happening. They were no longer alone. The silence of the cosmos had been broken, and the galaxy was listening. That night, as news outlets around the world reported on the growing intensity of the signals, something remarkable happened. The first of the alien scout ships arrived, slipping through Earth's atmosphere undetected by most of the world's radar systems. The ship was small, sleek, and entirely unlike anything Earth had ever seen. It moved with precision and grace, almost as if it were alive, as if it were adapting to its surroundings in real time. The ship hovered just above the planet's surface, unseen by human eyes. But the alien technology was anything but silent. It was silently scanning the Earth, gathering information. It had been sent by the Valkyrians, and they weren't alone in their curiosity. The galaxy's most powerful empires were watching, waiting. Dr. Ford, unaware of the ships above, continued his work. The messages were getting clearer, but there was still no way to fully understand them. The data was overwhelming, the implications unimaginable. Who could they trust? Could Earth survive what was coming? Days passed in a blur of military strategy. scientific analysis, and public panic. People around the world felt a growing sense of unease. The thought of being watched, of having their planet observed by forces beyond their comprehension, left many wondering if Earth had any chance at all. They had been a planet of peace, oblivious to the dangers lurking in the stars. Now they were being pulled into something much larger, a game they didn't understand, and worse, they might not be prepared for it. As the alien ships continued to observe from the shadows, Dr. Ford made a shocking discovery. The signal had a pattern, one that was no longer random. It was a map, a blueprint, pointing to something deep within Earth's core, something ancient, something powerful. The realization hit him hard. The signal wasn't just a message, it was a call to action. The time was approaching, and Earth would soon have to answer. The quiet before the storm had given way to an unsettling tension that gripped the entire planet. The signals from space continued, growing louder and more frequent. What had begun as a cryptic message from deep within the stars now felt like a countdown. Earth was no longer just a passive observer of the cosmos. Something was happening, and it was happening fast. Governments worldwide were in a constant state of alert. The military had been mobilized, but no one knew what they were preparing for. Was it an invasion, a peaceful encounter, or something far worse? The question hung in the air, unanswered, and it weighed heavily on every decision. Space stations in orbit had become command centers, tracking every movement in the sky. Every passing day seemed to bring more uncertainty. Dr. Elias Ford had spent sleepless nights trying to decipher the signal, but the pieces just didn't fit. His earlier excitement had turned into frustration, as the complexity of the transmissions only seemed to grow. He wasn't just dealing with an alien language, he was dealing with a force that defied all understanding. There was no structure, no predictability, just a chaotic stream of patterns and pulses. It was as though the signal itself was alive, reacting to something, or someone. And then, one fateful evening, it happened. The signal shifted once more, this time with a clarity that sent chills down Dr. Ford's spine. "We are coming." The words were unmistakable, and with them, the implications were even clearer. The galaxy had already noticed Earth, and it wasn't coming to offer peace. It was coming for something else. For the first time, Dr. Ford felt a deep, visceral fear. This wasn't just a contact attempt. This was something bigger, something darker. The galaxy had overlooked Earth for centuries, but now, it was impossible to ignore. It had become a chessboard, and Earth was the unsuspecting pawn. Across the globe, panic was spreading. People could feel the unease in the air. News stations were filled with endless speculation, some suggesting that Earth was about to face a galactic war, others predicting that the planet would soon be enslaved. The military had been given orders to prepare for anything, but their technology was nothing compared to what they suspected was coming. What could they do? How could they defend themselves against an unknown enemy, one that had been watching from the shadows for so long? The first sign of the alien presence came when a fleet of ships appeared in the sky. They were massive, unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Their sleek, metallic surfaces shimmered against the backdrop of space, casting an eerie glow on the planet below. The ships hovered in perfect formation, as if they were waiting for something. It was both beautiful and terrifying. Dr. Ford was among the first to witness the ships. He had been in the command center when the alert went off. His heart raced. As he stared at the screen, the ships were not moving, not yet. It was as though they were waiting for a signal of their own. And as the hours ticked by, he began to realize that the ships were not just observing, they were preparing. The question was, preparing for what? Suddenly, the ships released a wave of energy, a pulse that rattled the entire planet. It wasn't an attack, but it was powerful enough to cause widespread panic. Electrical systems across the globe flickered. Communications were cut off. For a brief moment, it felt as though the entire world had been thrown into darkness. The pulse lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to send a clear message. Earth was no longer in control. As the days passed, Earth's military forces scrambled to respond, but the Valkyrians, the first to arrive, had not come with weapons. Their ships hovered silently, observing the planet, studying its movements. The other galactic empires were doing the same. Earth had become the epicenter of galactic attention, and the stakes were higher than anyone could have imagined. The Valkyrians sent a message, though not one of war. It was an invitation. "Come to us," it said. "We wish to speak with you." The message sent shockwaves across Earth. Was this the beginning of something peaceful? Or was this simply the calm before the true battle? The world's leaders debated fiercely. Some argued that Earth should engage with the Valkyrians, seeking diplomacy and understanding. Others feared that any interaction would lead to disaster, giving the aliens an advantage they couldn't afford to lose. Meanwhile, the civilians of Earth were left in a state of confusion and fear. No one knew who to trust. No one knew what the future held. People took to the streets, their faces filled with uncertainty. The calm, ordinary lives they had once known were slipping away. No one was exempt from the tension that gripped the planet. Whether you were in a bustling city or a quiet village, it didn't matter. Earth's fate had been sealed. The galaxy was about to collide with the planet, and no one knew what would happen next. As the days turned to weeks, the Valkyrians continued their silent observation. And then, the impossible happened. The ships began to move. Slowly, deliberately, they descended toward Earth, their massive frames cutting through the atmosphere. There was no warning, no final communication. They simply arrived. The military stood ready, weapons primed. Earth's leaders had made their choice. They would meet the aliens head-on, prepared for anything. But no one could have predicted what happened next. The Valkyrian ships landed, but instead of attacking, they opened. The once mighty and untouchable empires had underestimated Earth. And now, in the presence of these towering ships, Earth's own power would be revealed. The humans had been underestimated for too long. The galaxy would soon learn that Earth was not just a backwater planet, it was a force to be reckoned with. As the Valkyrian ships descended toward Earth, the tension reached its breaking point. The world held its breath, waiting for anything to happen. Earth had never faced such a threat. The massive alien vessels hung in the atmosphere, casting shadows over the cities below. The air felt thick with anticipation. Every government, every military leader, every scientist, was on edge. The fate of the planet seemed to hang in the balance. But when the ships finally landed, the unimaginable happened. There was no explosion, no burst of destructive energy. Instead, the ships opened, their massive gates sliding open with mechanical precision. A deep, unsettling silence followed. Earth's military, which had been preparing for an odd war, stood frozen, uncertain of how to react. The signals from the ships had been clear. This was no ordinary invasion. This was something else. Inside the ships, the Valkyrians moved with quiet purpose. They were not the terrifying warlords that humanity had feared. Instead, they appeared calm, almost methodical. Their mission was not to destroy, was to observe, to learn, and to engage. As the first Valkyrian stepped onto Earth's surface, the world collectively gasped. The alien had the look of a scholar, not a conqueror. Their eyes, bright and calculating, scanned the surroundings. They didn't appear hostile, just curious. Dr. Elias Ford was one of the first to step forward, his heart pounding as he approached the Valkyrian leader. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment that could change everything. Humanity's future lay in this exchange, but what would it bring? As he stood there, facing the alien beings, he could feel the weight of history bearing down on him. The Valkyrian leader raised a hand, signaling the rest of their crew to remain still. It was a gesture of peace, but even so, the air felt charged with an invisible force. The humans who had gathered at the landing site were all too aware of the stakes. This was no longer just about survival, it was about proving humanity's worth in the eyes of the galaxy. "You are the first," the Valkyrian leader said, their voice strange yet intelligible. "We have watched you Earthlings for a long time, but now, you will show us your true potential." Dr. Ford swallowed hard. It wasn't a question, it was a challenge. For a brief moment, he hesitated. What did they want from Earth? What was it that made Earth so special in the grand design of the galaxy? His mind raced with possibilities. Had they come to enslave humanity, or were they simply testing its strength? The ambiguity of the situation made it all the more terrifying. But there was no turning back now. "We're ready," Dr. Ford finally said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty in his heart. "We may not fully understand your intentions, but we will show you who we are." The words were simple, but they held weight. They weren't just a declaration of defiance. They were a promise that Earth would stand tall, regardless of the consequences. As he spoke, he saw the eyes of the Valkyrian leader narrow. The alien was studying him, analyzing every word, every movement. They had already determined Earth's potential. They knew what the humans were capable of. The question now was, would humanity rise to meet the challenge? Suddenly, the ground shook. It was a minor tremor at first, but it quickly escalated. The alien ships, as if reacting to something unseen, began to hum with power. Energy crackled around them, and the sky above darkened. The Valkyrians stepped back, their posture tense, ready for something. Dr. Ford's eyes widened as he realized. What was happening? The energy from the ships was not a display of force, it was a test, a trial, designed to see how Earth would respond to an immense, unknown power. The Valkyrians weren't attacking, they were provoking, pushing humanity, to show what it could do in the face of adversity. Then, without warning, the sky erupted. A beam of pure energy shot out from the Valkyrian ship, piercing the clouds and striking the Earth's surface. It wasn't destructive. Instead, it seemed to be measuring, scanning, analyzing. But the sheer magnitude of the power left the humans breathless. It was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. No weapon, no technology, could compare to the force that was now scanning them from the sky. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, in a flash, the beam disappeared, leaving a lingering hum in the air. Dr. Ford stood there, motionless, waiting for the inevitable. What would the Valkyrians do now? Would they see humanity as a worthy adversary, or would they decide that Earth was too fragile, too primitive to survive in the galaxy? As the Valkyrian leader turned to face Dr. Ford, their expression unreadable, the silence stretched on. The Valkyrians had made their move. They had tested Earth, probing its response to the power of the galaxy. And now, it was time for Earth to respond in kind. What you have shown us, the Valkyrian leader finally said, their voice deep with authority, is that you are not like the others. You are not simply a race of mindless beings. You have something within you, something that sets you apart from the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Ford's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. This was the moment where humanity would either rise to the occasion or crumble under the weight of its own inadequacy. He looked around at the humans who had gathered, at the military leaders, the scientists, the everyday people who had never imagined that their planet would be caught in such a battle. They were all watching, waiting to see if Earth had the strength to stand alongside the galaxy's most powerful forces. The Valkyrian leader took a step forward, their gaze never leaving Dr. Ford. You will face your trial soon enough, Earthlings, and if you succeed, you will find a place among the stars. Fail, and you will be forgotten, as so many others have been. The challenge had been issued. The galaxy was watching. Earth had no choice but to rise to meet it. The tension between Earth and the galactic empires was growing by the day. The Valkyrians' arrival had shaken the planet, and the message was clear. Earth was being tested. The weight of the challenge hung heavily on the shoulders of every leader, every scientist, every soldier. Humanity had no choice but to rise to meet the expectations of the galaxy or risk being forgotten, cast aside like countless other civilizations. As the days passed, Earth's response was deliberate but uncertain. The military ramped up preparations, fortifying borders, and ensuring that every weapon was ready. But despite the growing sense of urgency, there was still something elusive about the situation. The Valkyrians had not come to conquer, at least, not yet. Their true intentions remained unclear. It was as though they were waiting for humanity to reveal something that had yet to surface. Dr. Elias Ford had been working tirelessly, trying to make sense of the Valkyrians' cryptic challenge. He had spent days analyzing the energy pulse from the Valkyrian ships, trying to understand its significance. The pulse had been more than just a demonstration of power. It was a key, a signal that held the answer to Earth's place in the galaxy. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't quite crack the code. Then, one afternoon it came. It wasn't through the signals, or the pulse, or any data he had received. It came from an unexpected source, a transmission from deep within Earth itself. The discovery was astonishing. Deep beneath the surface of the planet, hidden for millennia, was an ancient structure, a complex of technology unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The technology wasn't alien in origin, it was of Earth's own making. Long before recorded history, Earth's ancient civilizations had stumbled upon a power that rivaled anything the galaxy could imagine. They had built this technology to protect the planet, to ensure that it would not fall prey to the forces of space. But over time, the knowledge had been lost, forgotten, buried beneath the surface of the Earth. Now, as humanity faced the challenge of the Valkyrians and the galaxy at large, that power was ready to be awakened. Dr. Ford felt a surge of excitement and fear as the realization sank in. This was it. This was what the Valkyrians had been waiting for, what they had been probing. The technology beneath Earth was not just a relic, it was the key to humanity's survival. And if it was activated in time, it could shift the balance of power in the galaxy forever. But activating this ancient technology was not going to be easy. Dr. Ford understood that the complexities involved would require every ounce of knowledge and skill humanity had developed over the centuries. The device, hidden deep within the Earth, was beyond their current capabilities. It would take time to decipher its intricacies, to unlock its potential. Time that Earth might not have. Desperation set in. The Valkyrians had given Earth a challenge, but what would happen if they failed to meet it? What would happen if Earth was unable to rise to the occasion, unable to unlock its true potential? Dr. Ford couldn't bear to think about it. He had seen enough of humanity's history to know that it was capable of great things, but also of great mistakes. Would they be able to overcome the weight of the galaxy's scrutiny, or would they fall short? News of the discovery spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to mobilize their best scientists, engineers, and military experts to assist in unlocking the power beneath Earth. The whole world now had a common goal: to activate the ancient technology, to prove that Earth was more than just a backwater planet, that humanity had something unique to offer. The pressure was unimaginable. And then, as if answering the call, a new wave of energy surged from the ancient technology. A massive pulse shot upward through the Earth's crust, reaching the surface and sending ripples through the planet's atmosphere. It was as though the Earth itself had awakened, responding to the call of the galaxy. The pulse was unlike any energy humanity had ever felt, both terrifying and exhilarating. The ground shook as though the planet was flexing its muscles, ready to face the challenge ahead. Across the globe, people looked up in awe as the sky was illuminated by the light of this newfound power. It wasn't just a beacon of hope, it was a warning to the galaxy. Earth was not weak. Earth was not ready to bow down. Humanity would rise, no matter the odds. In the command centers, Dr. Ford and his team watched in amazement as the pulse continued to expand. The technology beneath the Earth was now alive, and it was responding to the call from the galaxy. The Valkyrians had pushed humanity to the edge, and in doing so, they had awakened something far more powerful than they could have anticipated. But there was a catch. The technology was responding to the pulse, but it wasn't yet fully activated. It was as if the planet was holding its breath, waiting for the final signal. Humanity's response was not just about brute force, it was about understanding the technology, unlocking its secrets, and harnessing its power. The Valkyrians had shown them what they needed to do, but now it was up to humanity to finish the job. Dr. Ford stood at the heart of the command center, watching as the energy continued to pulse outward, growing stronger with each passing moment. He knew that this was their moment, the moment when Earth would either prove itself to the galaxy or be left behind. The technology was there, waiting to be used. The question now was, could humanity unlock it in time? The world held its breath. The challenge had been set. The Valkyrians, watching from above, had given humanity its trial. It was now up to Earth to decide its fate. Would they rise, or would they falter? The galaxy was watching, and Earth was about to show the universe exactly what it was capable of. The energy that had been dormant for centuries now surged through Earth, and with it came an overwhelming realization. Humanity was no longer just a participant in the galaxy's grand narrative. It had become a key player. As the power beneath the planet began to awaken, something shifted within the hearts of people everywhere. The initial fear had given way to something much more powerful, a burning desire to prove that Earth was not a backwater world, not something to be discarded. It had something that no other civilization could claim: the will to survive. The ground trembled as ancient machines hummed to life beneath the surface. Dr. Elias Ford stood at the command center, his eyes glued to the monitors as Earth's once hidden power slowly unfolded. He had spent his entire career studying the mysteries of the cosmos, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. The pulse of energy that had first sent shockwaves through the planet now seemed to be connecting with the stars, as if a bridge had been built between Earth and the galaxy. For the first time in history, Earth was not just watching the galaxy, was a force within it. The Valkyrian ships, hovering in the skies above, were silent, but the energy from Earth's core had sent a message that no one could ignore. The ships began to shift, repositioning themselves as if reacting to the planet's awakening. It was a subtle change, but it was clear to those who were watching. The Valkyrians were beginning to realize that Earth was not as they had expected. They had underestimated humanity, and now it was too late to turn back. As the Valkyrians waited, the planet's power continued to grow. The energy from Earth's core had begun to interact with the galactic signals, amplifying them. In real time, the planets and stars within the galaxy started to respond. It was as if the entire universe had been holding its breath, and now, Earth's awakening had released a shockwave that rippled across the stars. But this wasn't just a simple cosmic event. The ancient technology beneath Earth had been waiting for this moment, waiting for humanity to prove itself. The technology was not just a weapon. It was a key to unlocking the galaxy's hidden truths, and as the pulse of energy resonated through the galaxy, The Varkarians' fleet suddenly went still. Their long gleaming ships hovered in the silent void, watching as the planet below seemed to transform. Dr. Ford had no illusions. The task ahead wasn't just about surviving, it was about navigating the path Earth was now forced to walk. The galaxy was shifting. Empires were watching. Some were impressed, others fearful. But Earth had already shown that it was no longer a mere spectator in the galactic drama, had the power to change the course of the future. What came next would determine everything. Across the globe, the tension was palpable. Military forces stood ready, though no one truly knew what they were preparing for. The technology beneath the surface had begun to interact with Earth's communications systems, sending a surge of energy through satellites and deep space probes. It was as if Earth itself was calling out to the cosmos, sending a message to the farthest reaches of space: we are here, and we are ready. At the same time, Earth's military leaders were gathering in bunkers and command centers, strategizing. They knew they had the technology now, but the question remained, what would the galaxy do? The Varkarians, having tested humanity, now faced the ultimate question themselves. Would Earth use its newfound power for peace, or for war? In every corner of the world, humanity felt a wave of unity. It didn't matter where they came from, or what language they spoke. Every person on Earth shared this moment. The planet was alive in ways no one could have predicted. The threat of annihilation had transformed into an opportunity. Earth was no longer the underdog. It had found its place in the cosmos, and it was determined to hold its ground. The Varkarians' response came in the form of a signal, one that Earth could not ignore. It wasn't an attack, but a message. You have proven yourselves worthy of the stars. But the galaxy is not as simple as you think. Prepare yourselves. Your trial has just begun. This was not the victory humanity had hoped for. It was not a clear declaration of triumph. The message from the Varkarians hinted at a deeper, more complex truth. The awakening of Earth had set in motion something far larger than anyone realized. The challenge was far from over. It had only just begun, but for the first time, humanity was in control of its own fate. The galaxy, which had once regarded Earth as insignificant, was now forced to reckon with its newfound power. The Vark, for all their advanced technology, had underestimated the strength of the human spirit, and now humanity stood at the precipice of something far beyond its comprehension. The next steps would determine everything. Would Earth rise to the occasion? Would it fulfill the promise that the galaxy had forced upon it, or would it falter under the pressure of its own newfound power? For the first time, humanity knew what it was capable of. The galaxy was watching, waiting, and Earth was about to step into the unknown, armed with the one thing that no empire could match: the will to survive. Dr. Ford looked out over the command center, watching the lights flicker across the screens. He couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. The challenge had been issued, but Earth was ready. For the first time in history, humanity had something no other civilization could take away. It had its future. The fate of the galaxy lay in the hands of Earth, and humanity was prepared to show the universe that its place in the stars was no accident. This was the beginning of a new chapter, and Earth would not be forgotten.